From Wakefield, it's the Nolan Car Night Show. I enjoy Nolan as guest this week Carli Munoz to the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Nolan. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the show. And joining me this week, all the way from Puerto Rico himself, you may know not just for his amazing cuisine, restaurant Carli's Fine Bistro, and piano bar. You may also know him for his work in the States with the Beach Boys and many other countless musicians. He has done some amazing work on an album of my favorite, being Pacific Ocean Blue and Bamboo, but also his album about 10 years ago almost that he put together called In My Soul. As I said, all the way from Puerto Rico himself, he is the one and only Mr. Carli Munoz. Carli, how are we today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you. Good to hear you. And thank you for having me in your program. It's actually, I've seen a few of the chapters and
Yes.
episodes, and it's you're very good at it.
Oh, thank you. I
Really
appreciate it. I've had a few of your contemporaries on, Bobby. I just had John Philip Chanel on from the 70s that he was speaking very highly of you on there, and Michael Andres as well. So
Oh,
might as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
might
All
as well
good
have
people.
yes, might as well have a few more on as well. Being you who you are, a musician, but also a business owner, you've seen both sides of the craziness the last 2 years have brought to the entire world. For you at this point, it's not technically, I would say, completely gone, but for you to sort see it now die down and back to normal, what's it been like?
It is, yeah, it is crazy. It's been disruptive in some aspects, but actually, for me, there was a lockdown here in San Juan in Puerto Rico. You know, from the day one of the lockdown of the pandemic, which lasted about 3 months, I began writing my memoirs.
Oh, okay.
So I wrote a book actually that will be released next year, about this time, the fall of next year. So in that sense, it was good for me because it gave me the space, the peace to write, which is something I had in the bucket list, but too many distractions
Yeah.
to actually do. So it was a great opportunity to do that. And I basically I wrote the core of it in the span of the lockdown.
Wow.
Of course, then tweaking,
Yeah.
okay, this works here, better there, but basically wrote it during the lockdown. So it was good to me that way. Business wise, well, the restaurant had its loss, obviously, and my wife has a store, Royal Vintage, a fashion boutique that also, business in general stepped down, and
Sure.
it was difficult for business. But we're back to speed now.
Yeah.
We opened right away. We're probably one of the first restaurants in the area to open. We opened. We normally don't serve lunch, but we opened for lunch then, with a very accessible menu for like first responders, like FEMA and the like.
Sure.
So what we got to open first with candlelight and gas for like I'm combining a little bit of like electric situations too, because at the same time, to top it off, we were having electrical issues in the island, and this happened right after Irma, and the other big hurricane that hurt us quite a bit. So it was like injury on top of injury.
Sure. For you, and I've asked this to some the other people I've had on during this time, it gives you a sort of moment to reflect. And maybe you had that moment while you were writing your memoirs. For you, what did you learn about yourself that maybe Carli Munoz didn't know about himself beforehand during the pandemic?
Well, you mean on account of the pandemic, or on account of writing the memoirs?
Well, I think maybe more the pandemic while we were all inside and at home.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you combine both, which is right, because the memoirs had a lot to do with the pandemic. So it's like kind of one. So being the pandemic cause of me writing the memoirs, well, it made me go deep into myself at times, to relive experiences that were significant, that were worth sharing with the people, that perhaps a perhaps a lesson could be learned from them.
Sure. I want to sort of turn this now to sort of starting as far back as we can with your story. You're a young kid growing up in Puerto Rico, and at 13, according to your bio on your website, and whether Wikipedia is true or not, at 13 you're given a piano by your father. That situation for you, what was it for you in terms of your hopes for music, but also in terms of maybe taking a crack at it as a professional job perspective?
Well, I wasn't thinking about professional jobs at that time.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to be a reporter.
Okay.
I walk around with a neighborhood with a little notebook, looking for trouble. So it was also my peers, guys in the neighborhood. We live in a house that was like like the tip of a triangle,
Okay.
and so it was like the crossroads of two street, which made it like a big space.
Sure.
So kids used to play ball there right in front of the house, but I wasn't inclined to sports.
Okay.
I found sports like they just didn't make sense to me.
Sure.
Going after a ball, and I was kind of like a dreamer, and I was always thinking of different things, scenarios, and philosophic. I had philosophical questions from when I was very little. So I was more like an introvert, let's say.
Okay.
And getting a piano was like, well, I wish I had gotten something with four wheels or two wheels, just
Sure.
something like more fun, because it was a birthday. It wasn't a 13th birthday,
Sure.
but it was a piano, and it was just this spinet wall piano. And it just sat there for a month, for like probably about, I don't know, maybe 6 months before I put my hands there. But once I did, it happened out of boredom. I remember while the other kids were playing ball in front of the house, I sat there, and then, God, it makes sense. It's easy. So
Sure.
it just like came to me.
Sure.
It's like, wow, this is easy. Chords. I started playing songs that I had heard before, uh, doing the melody again, that sort of thing. So it was um, it was a trigger, definitely.
Before joining the Beach Boys and the Living End, and then going to New York, where your music career sort of took off, what was your musical palette like in terms of listening to it, but also being a fan of?
Okay. I still have a sister that's 9.5 years older than me. So then I had a teenage sister,
Okay.
and she was listening to Haley and the Comets, and rock and roll was big at the time. It was like it was like the end of the 50s, towards the
Okay.
end of the 50s, and boogie woogie. My dad brought me a record that was boogie woogie, and I love that music. And also, so I listened to boogie woogie, Charleston. My mom
Okay.
loved Charleston. She danced Charleston. She taught me how to dance
Okay.
Charleston. My sister taught me how to dance jive, bunny hop, all those great rock dances. And so that's what we listened to. And also, we used to listen, it was like towards the end of the Korean War. So my dad would have like a radio station
Okay.
that it was American, and they would play music, music, the elevator, dentist,
Sure.
dental office music. But then it wasn't characterized as that.
Sure.
It was just beautiful music, and all it was, it's like all this like music from movies and TV shows, and like stuff like just things from great movie, let's see, Days of Wine and Roses,
Okay.
um, and torch songs, but it was really beautiful music, and it got my attention. Now, also part of growing up was the local music, was the local
Right.
dance music, which is what today they call salsa, which then it wasn't called salsa. Salsa is kind of a cheap shot idea to, because salsa means a sauce. Is because this music, every bit of this music has a particular name. It's a rumba, guaracha, guaguancó. So it, for the people that didn't have that knowledge, they were Latin, probably more like in the diaspora, like in New York, Chicago, stuff like, they started calling it salsa because it's to them it all sounded the same.
Sure.
But there's like intricacies that will
All right.
distinguish a rumba from a mambo, and
Sure.
like that. But then it had that intricacy, and
Uh-huh.
I grew up also with that music because it was a natural music that people had at parties and danced to, and then the ballads and all that stuff. And in fact, my very first band was a dance band, and we played
Uh,
that music. And then we recruited a singer, and then we started doing torch music like a Moon River and
yeah.
all that stuff. So and then from there we mutated to rock and roll.
All right. For you at that point, I mean, you were part of the Beach Boys, at least in the early 70s, especially, where the Beach Boys music is much more changed and advanced than what it was just the surf rock girls and car stuff. Were they on your peripheral vision in terms of music, or was it until you got into the States and you got into with the Beach Boys?
No, I was a fan of the beach. In fact, in growing up in Puerto Rico, we had surf music was a big deal.
All right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we had surfers, we had great coasts, and we had great waves, and so we had surf bunnies, we had hot rods, and that whole culture was here and very close to where I live, because I was raised very close to the ocean,
All right.
in along the coast. And so that was part, my friends were surfers, and we had bonfires just as a normal thing to do in a coastal town,
Sure.
in the sundown, and we had our guitars, and we roasted marshmallows and all kinds of things like that. So that culture was there. When the Beach Boys happened right from the beginning, we it trickled down here. I mean,
Interesting.
it trickled, but almost instantly,
Sure.
because the hit parade was also the hit parade over here. So
Sure.
we got all that music, and by, let's see, it must be around 67, 68, 67. I think I heard the Pet Sounds
Sure.
for
Yeah.
the first time, and that was really impressive.
Yeah.
And I was here. It was here in Puerto Rico, and I mean, the impression was like particularly strong,
Yeah.
because I was doing my first LSD trip. Oh, so that was like, it was in the background,
Sure.
when I was having the strongest moment, and it was an LSD at the time was even legal. Um, it was still legal, you know. And I remember I read a book. I read The Doors of Perception before I did it. My dad saw me reading, and he was happy to see me read philosophical. So, oh, good son, you're like interested. Yeah, I
Yeah.
might experiment with something. I heard of. So
Yeah.
anyway, but uh, I yeah, that music, it just sounded so amazing stuff, like how it just wasn't made for this time.
Yeah.
The brass was so multi-dimensional. Even it even had a color. I mean, Pet Sounds was red
Sure.
in my, I mean, it's not easy to explain, but things take a color,
All right.
at that level of experience. And I remember Pet Sounds being a lot of red related to Pet Sounds. And it was so deep, so powerful.
Yeah.
Songs like I Don't Talk, Put Your Head on my shoulder.
Yeah.
All the Pet Sounds songs were like just reverberated on me
Yeah.
forever.
Sure.
And um, there was a little bit of an issue one time on a plane during a tour where I think we were on a private plane, and I was in a more forward aisle, and Brian was more like in the back, like about 3 or 4 aisles down. So at that time, Brian, he didn't speak a word with anyone. He just like total seclusion, total. Not even talk to his brothers, no one. He was just, and suddenly we just there, and I see he came up the aisle, comes to me and says, "Carli, how is it that you can play my music so well?"
Wow.
Apparently he had been thinking about it for a while, because he's, again, he's not spontaneous and just coming up with things like that. He wasn't talking. And it startled me that he said that. So the most honest thing that I could say right away is because, well, I heard Pet Sounds when I first took LSD, but it was the wrong answer for him, because he totally freaked out by my answer.
Sure.
He's like, oh. And then he went back, and it just like I suppose it wasn't something that needed to be mentioned,
sure,
or that he needed to be reminded of.
Yeah.
So I felt really bad about that. Of course, I didn't hear another word. He went right back into his depression, seclusion for the rest of the flight. But I mean, I didn't know. I just answered honestly but maybe expectation that they might understand.
Sure.
He may later in hindsight understand if he ever got to analyze, because he had the experience, and
Sure.
except that of course, his reaction to it wasn't the same as mine. I embraced the experience where he rejected the experience.
Sure.
But Pet Sounds was very, very, very important to me, and we listened to the Beach Boys among our group, the Living End. It was one of our favorite groups.
Wow.
Along with the Beatles, along with the Birds, all the bees, I call it. We had other favorites like Procol Harum, and Loving Spoonful, and then the lesser known like Michael Clark, and, Ford from Zappa, and and then came Motown.
Yeah.
But the Beach Boys were there. We're there on the top.
For you, and then I had Gary Griffin on here, who was there on the same time you were for a little bit, and a guy who Dennis worked with on Little Bird, on the Friends album, Stephen Kalinich, have both talked about how they dreamed about working with the Beach Boys, and it was their mission to get them, and they ended up doing that. For you, listening to that music, maybe not just the first time, but when you were listening to it more before you met Ed Carter, did you have a goal or dream to ever work with them at some point?
None whatsoever. I had no clue I would meet him. I went to LA against my best wishes, because I was convinced, by Jack Reiley, who was my roommate in New York. And he just insisted, bought me a ticket. Carli, about you there, please come with me. Let's just go for a weekend. So okay, I'll go. But at that point, I really wanted to settle back in New York. And so went to LA, and there we stayed. It was sort of an adventure. And I had no idea, nothing, that I would meet the Beach Boys. And I wasn't pursuing it either.
Sure.
I might have pursued something different, so a little more towards jazz, because I had a jazz experience early on, and which was still in my vein, and I really wanted to do that. But anyway, so I had the phone number of Ed Carter from an ex-girlfriend from my group, the Living Ed. And soon, when I was in LA, one time I just looking at my wallet. So I call Ed, and everything kind of happened, flowing from there. And for Jack as well, Jack became their manager, and co-writer and all kinds of stuff. And all that happened simultaneously with one thing not having to do with the other. That's the weird thing. We both end up with the same employer, and meeting on the road.
Sure. Some of your contemporaries that you played with within the Beach Boys, and those who followed you after have been lucky enough and fortunate enough to have on here, talked about their way into the band and their audition for the group as well and what they went through. What was your audition process like for the group, and did you have to audition separately for the core members of the group?
At first, I don't think I even had to audition.
Okay.
Because the very first gig I did with them, and the first few gigs I did with them, first few tours, were playing percussion.
Okay.
They needed a percussionist, and that's what when I met Ed Carter,
Okay.
it was at Michael Wolski's house.
Okay.
And they had been both playing with the Beach Boys for a long time, and we're jamming, and we became very, very close friends. And it was Mike or Mike and Ed. They both asked me, "Look, do you play percussion?" And I said, "Yes, because we need a percussionist for a tour coming up." I think they were going to Montreal, then New York. Anyway, it was an East Coast tour, and maybe not. Maybe there was a local tour first, but it was near that time. And so I said, yes, of course. I mean, I don't have the instruments. You don't have to worry about that. Everything was taken care of. Well, it's okay. So there was a rehearsal in Santa Monica, and nothing. I just integrated myself.
Sure.
It was very, very easy for me, because I play percussion intuitively. Plus the way I had heard Pet Sounds,
Sure.
which which was like a core way of experiencing the music when I did on that first LSD trip. I knew it better than well, and it was the percussion. The percussion is a big part of Pet Sounds.
Sure, yeah.
And how it impacts the psyche. Yeah. So I had that down. And so that went well. It wasn't until a rehearsal in New York, the Beach Boys had rented a loft during the tour to rehearse. And at the time, they had the horn section. And so there was a break where Al and Carl and, the guys, they went for lunch. But we stayed there because the horn players, they were jazz aficionados, and they wanted to jam. So they started jamming. Daryl Dragon, then he left the piano because Daryl didn't play jazz. Then I just thought, oh, well, there's a vacancy. The piano's there. Hey, they play my music. So I sat and I played with them. So we were jamming, and it was like there was fire. And the Beach Boys, then they come back from the break, and we're playing, and they see me playing that music. We're playing jazz. And then, like, as we finished, Carl says to me, "Carli, you're playing," his words, "you're playing that sophisticated music. I wonder how you would, have you played organ?" He said, "Yes, that's organ is what I play with a living hand for so long, Hammond organ. So I like to hear how you sound with us, So then I kept doing percussion tours. And when Daryl left, then they called me, like, for sure, like, okay, we want to hear you with the group. That was sort of an audition. That was like just a piece of cake. They had this sheet music with the chords. I didn't read music, but I could follow. I heard it, and I followed the sheet music, and that was it.
That to you, I'm sure, was one of the greatest experiences for you to be playing that, not knowing that then they would be seeing you and being so amazed of your ability to play jazz music, especially at a time when their music is really developing and really progressing.
Right.
Speaking of Carl, and everyone knows, and especially well because you were there, knows how great of a person Carl was and how loving and appreciative he was of everyone. But there's stories I've been told of musicians that have played in the Beach Boys of Carl when you play a wrong note or you play the note not correctly, known as the Carl Wilson stare. When he looks back at you once, looks back at you twice, and the third time, as they say, your ass is grass. Did you ever have that with you, or did you see anyone else see that happen to them?
Well, I saw plenty of people getting it, that's for sure. Whether I had it, I don't remember. I might taken the Beach Boys over the edge a few times, like, but it was like more like, like, okay, that's where you're going. Because
Yeah.
I mean, when I play with the Beach, when I play rock, first of all, it's a whole different. I change hats. It's like
Yeah.
it's not. I'm not playing jazz at
Yeah.
all. I don't combine jazz with,
Oh,
except I might do in a solo, like Living This Town, a little elements of it, but I remain within the realm of
sure.
rock. Maybe make it psychedelic or something. I could do, things like that. But when I play rock, I play rock. When I play
Sure.
jazz, I play jazz. I switch hats completely. So I never cross that line with them. But if I get a little creative, I'm getting like I look like like a little, okay, we have a parameters kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. But basically, I think Carl, he showed nothing but respect for my
Sure.
playing, and Dennis, of course, and those were the most musical
Yeah.
guys in the group. Of course, Brian.
Yeah.
Uh, oh,
For you, when you joined in the early 70s, that was Dennis's beginning in terms of being creative with, especially the Sunflower album. He has his songs on that, Forever, one of the greatest songs in the Beach Boys catalog. For you to witness him starting to become creative, I know Daryl Dragon, he was gonna have a solo an album with them that didn't work out, and then obviously Pacific Ocean Blue and Bamboo. For you to experience his early creative moments within the band at that time, what was it like for you to experience that?
oh, you mean like working with Dennis
Yeah.
particularly? Yeah, that was uh I wouldn't say challenging. It was interesting. It was really great to uh to hear Dennis compositions. It
Sure.
was really, really it's really refreshing. It was really a nice kind of surprise to hear that Dennis could, have such good structures and
Sure.
like his songs, like it's like classically oriented and very, very soulful, very powerful um arrangement of chords that became songs. There were like a lot of them were like taglines, or
Yeah.
which is I admired it a lot. And I was well, when he asked me to produce, and like, and then my songs, I was very happy. I was
Sure.
very happy about that, because I thought we could really do something good together.
Sure.
I felt he had something that I didn't have, and I felt that I had something that he didn't have,
Sure.
and that's what, especially in Bamboo, that's what we brought
Sure.
together.
Throughout your time with the Beach Boys, you were part of, I'm sure, your fair share of big time concerts, the Fourth of July ones. But when you're playing with these big concerts with the Beach Boys, Fourth of July ones, and things of that nature, as a musician, how do you let the fandom and the fans there, wash over you, but not let it consume you, where then you're freaking out and not playing the correct music with them?
Oh, no, no. I mean, once you're there, it's like how I felt is like just giving everything I have,
Yeah.
like in tandem with other parts, other components, with the group, making it one. It's like being a gear in a system, and the transmission. It's like, yeah, it's like this works, that energy, and that energy from the public, that's like, just it's empowering.
Sure.
That roar that lasts for a good first half of a concert.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, these people are really getting the best of this, so I'm gonna give the best. This
Sure.
is it's really, it's fun, really.
Sure.
um and you end up with a lot of energy,
Sure.
that is very difficult to burn after.
During that time, though, the late 70s, 77, 78, and maybe a little later as well, Pacific Ocean Blue and Bamboo is starting to be put together at that time. and you have a big role in that, as I've said before. At that point, that's when Dennis is now, I would say, really starting to get serious. You know, he was getting in shape, and he was, you know, taking center stage almost as the lead person instead of Mike. And you saw that even with the Chicago tour in the mid '70s, when Dennis was starting that way of Pacific Ocean Blue and Bamboo. Could you tell that something was starting to happen in terms of his own solo stuff, or was it something like, oh, he's doing this great?
No, yeah, definitely showing his talent. I mean, he did with Pacific Ocean Blue. I mean, that was that's when he came out and showed that he had the stuff. He had what it takes to make great music and put together a great album. In fact, I'm not even sure why he asked me he wanted to do an album of my music.
Sure.
Because I mean, I think he had, he had everything. I think he identified. Somehow we had a connection. We had a
Sure.
special connection, and the songs that I wrote, the lyrics and everything about it, I think he connected with it, and he wanted to make it his own.
Sure.
And he could do that really well. I mean, he was perfect. He was the perfect match for those songs. But his talent was evident. I mean, and he could have done a lot more too, but he got distracted.
Yes.
But he could have done a lot more. I mean, his source, and it's different writing than Brian, different writing than Carl. He had his very, very own, very profound.
Sure.
But he stopped.
Yeah.
He stopped somewhere.
Speaking of, it's not too late. That song that you had written with him, great song on the album. His vocal on that with Carl helping him out, amazing in what it is, and to have both of them together sing, that's great. But on your album, In My Soul, I think I like that one just a little bit more because I like the rock element that's there when the I don't know who the female is singing that song with you.
Right.
I was saying there because I've been listening to that album the last week or so since we confirmed a date and time, and a lot of that songs I sort of almost, and no offense to Dennis, God bless him, but I sort of like the songs that when you covered them yourself on your own on that own album because it was such a different aspect of it. So I'm sure though when you had that stuff on that album, it gave you great pride that Dennis trusted you and said these songs are so great. Let me put this on an album.
Yes, I'll tell you a little story on that. Well, you asked about the girl. First of all, the girl. I recorded that in Nashville at Fred Vale's recording studio, Treasure Island.
Yeah.
Treasure Isle, and there was this young girl from Nashville auditioning. She wanted to audition, and so I had just done the part that I wanted to create like a contrasty thing, like a wolf and a lamb kind of thing. I'm the wolf because I have this low voice.
Yeah.
And, so I see this young, beautiful girl, and I said, "Well, let me hear you sing." And she sang a little bit. I said, "Okay." I grabbed her by the arm. Let me show you this part. You're gonna do this part. So that's how I picked her. Yeah. So then I produced her. She didn't have to do that many times. She was great, really. Wow. She was wonderful. It's been a while. I forget her name, but her name is in the titles. Sure. And so that was that. The thing is that that whole album, I wasn't gonna sing it.
Wow.
See, the reason I did that album, it was like almost to not a revenge, but to kind of redeem the fact that okay, that those are the songs that Bamboo was going to be, because Dennis asked, he said when I played him the demo, he said, I want to do my next album is going to be your songs, and I want you to produce it. And I said, okay, thank you, but we'll produce it together. I'd rather, because I know,
Sure.
that's the way it was going to end up
Yeah.
anyway. So might as well agree at the moment. And we agreed it, and we worked very well together. We got as far as like doing 4 songs, although we had the other songs were like in other tapes that were started, but
Sure.
not as advanced as those 4 songs, All Alone, Under the Moonlight, and It's Not Too Late, and Companion. So I don't want to lose track here of what I was saying. So, oh yeah. So I didn't, to me, like Dennis doing the lead on those songs, that was perfect.
Sure.
And I never considered myself a singer. I could do background vocals and stuff like that, but a lead singer, I never really, just said I didn't want to go there. But I sing my songs to show people how they go.
Sure.
So I recorded, I made this recording.
Wow.
I recorded this, once I sketched this song for the album, in my soul, I start looking for singers, and sending music to different singers, and people recommended great singers, and all. And I put my voice as a reference. So what I would get back, it would be them imitating me.
Okay.
So that's not what I want. That sounds like me. Okay. So at some point I said, well, I might as well just do it myself. If everybody's going to sound like me,
yeah,
I'm going to sing the album.
Sure.
So that's what I did. I sang it as a writer, as a composer, a singer, kind of thing. Because I wasn't really that confident,
Sure.
or desired to be a singer, or had desired to be a singer. But I ended up, and I really enjoyed it.
Sure.
I enjoyed the process. So, especially hearing all these other great singers that ended up sounding like me, well, then I had, of course, oh yeah, of course I can do this.
Sure.
So that's how I ended up singing the album.
Well, I as I said, I can't say enough about the album. It's so good. My favorite song on the album is From Red to Blue, and it's such a powerful song. I was almost, because as I said about, when we were first starting, my summer being over almost, and the summer camp ending soon, I just listening to it, that song From Red to Blue almost was bringing me to tears almost. I didn't feel any go down my face, but it was such a great song. So again, thank you for that album. When you were putting that together with during that time that when Pacific Ocean Blue and Bamboo, if that, let's say his situation was different and he had his stuff in order, what do you think could have happened to his career and the trajectory that he would have taken, but also with you seeing as you were part of that as well?
I think we were a very powerful force together, and I think we could have done a lot of stuff. But it didn't happen because of the disruption.
Sure.
And the disruption had a lot to do with his emotional state with Karen.
Yeah.
And Karen Lamb, and he just went down the deep end. I mean, it was really sad to see that.
Sure.
Because it consumed him.
After coming back to Puerto Rico in the 80s, and then eventually a few years passed, and then in the late 90s, 98, you found Carlis Bistro, the restaurant that you're still with today, that you founded 23 years later, or if not 24 years later, depending on the math. I'm not a math major. Did you have any aspirations in terms of going into the business world in the way that you did with your restaurant?
No. So my answers on both of your questions, whether I have aspirations, whether to enter the Beach Boys or to do this kind of business, both been no. Okay, that the reason for that is that I don't plan things that far ahead. Sure. I really don't. I see an opportunity and I kind of go with the flow.
Sure.
Opening a restaurant was a suggestion of a fellow. He was an accountant that worked at a historic hotel in also one where I was playing. I had a one-nighter there, and he suggested one time, we're walking around also, and he said, "Carli, why don't you open a restaurant?" And I said, "It's not a bad idea," and I opened a restaurant.
Sure.
it took me about a year, to kind of visualize everything, put everything together, get the knowledge, and get finance and all that stuff. But it just I never thought of. I never
Sure.
even dreamed, or it just never occurred in my mind.
Sure.
Never entered my mind before.
What does the owning the restaurant and operating it provide to you that music has not?
A certain stability, because it's an everyday thing.
Sure.
It's an everyday challenge. I mean,
Right.
and the challenge are many.
Sure.
Especially it's like to keep the quality at all levels. Like whether it's service, whether it's food, keep the high fine dining level. Uh, uh, Keeping a motivated staff, high quality. The same thing with the bar, the same thing with the wines. Then the logistic of the receiving the goods, the foods, the materials to work with, and almost everyday basis. The hygiene, the permissiology,
Sure.
everything. I mean, the marketing. It's a challenge.
Sure.
But it's a daily thing. Not to mention that it's a cash flow business, which is
Sure.
good, because I try to stuff. I studied cinema. I left the Beach Boys in '81 to study cinematography, among other reasons. I wanted to be with my children, with my newborns, but I always also wanted to study cinematography, which I did. And I did stuff. I produced stuff. I did some work for Dean Martin, and I did some for fashion, and I did documentaries. I directed commercials, documentary, things like that. But at some point that it peaked, and it just wasn't what I wanted. It was actually it was driving me crazy. And it peaked here in Puerto Rico. And fortunately, the Hurricane Hugo came and destroyed everything, and I could reinvent myself and start over. So, okay, I'm just gonna be a musician.
Sure.
And that's what the happiest time I've been. But I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it does. And who knows when it happens? I mean, you still see nowadays Brian still performing to 80. He was just touring with Chicago this past summer. And then Mike obviously is still performing with the Beach Boys at 81 years old. Before you hang it up musically and stop performing, what do you hope to accomplish in your music career?
What I hope to accomplish is a legacy. Well, on a certain level, I have a group of kids that I mentor. They're high school kids, and I mentor on avant-garde music. And then on another level, well, part of it's in the book. The book should have an impact in the things that I want to, the message I want to get through as a legacy as well. At the restaurant, every day is kind of, I hope to impact every day. My work staff is I believe is very much influenced by me, and it's we influence, let's say, better by each other, but it's like handpicked. I mean, it's like I don't have anyone in my staff that I wouldn't want to hang out with. Let's say. So there's a vibe. There's a really, really good vibe that hopefully is transmitted to other people, to the patrons, to the people that come. And we're fortunate. We're very successful. The place is full every night and all the stuff. We have really excellent clientele, and the clientele that we have is on the most part is it's a good, sensitive. It's a conscious clientele. So I with the music, and then I play every night, and with the music, I hope to impact people, impact into higher consciousness. And that's everything I do. I try to impact. I I just want to leave that legacy of higher consciousness.
Sure.
I don't want to, okay, I went through life and what happened, did I enjoy myself? It's not about that. I have and I do and all this stuff. And I worship my family, my wife, my daughter, and my life. And but I want to leave the place better.
Sure.
That's my ultimate goal. Well, I do it through music. At some point, I thought I could do it through filmmaking. That's why I studied filmmaking, and but it became commercial, and I hated the outcome of that becoming commercial.
Yeah.
I felt trapped. So then I had to reboot myself back into being a musician, a jazz musician. Then more like full-fledged. Unfortunately, I was able to walk that path into the mainstream, which it was a very proud moment, achievement for me. But that's, to me, that's the most important thing.
Sure.
Teach the children, teach the people, change consciousness, bring down the oppressor and
Sure.
make a better life.
Sure.
That's I'm happy with that. I'm having done that musically. If my music affect people that way in any kind of way, I'm happy.
Well,
that's my ultimate goal.
Good for you for wanting to do that and providing a serious impact on life, such as your contemporary Brian Wilson has done. Before we end here today, again, I can't express my gratitude enough towards you. I want to end with a little segment called the One Word Challenge. So this is what I'll do. I thought of a few names or people or places or things that have some connection to you, and you have to do your best to come up with a word or two or sentence that best comes to mind when you hear the word. So Carli, are you ready?
That's dangerous, Nolan, because I'm very spontaneous. Maybe too much for my own good, or maybe sure. Okay, well, anyway, I'll be honest.
First one, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
I love it. It's my home, and I wouldn't trade being here for anywhere else in the world.
Los Angeles.
I miss it. I miss my friends. I miss the people. I miss so many incredibly wonderful people I met there.
Dennis Wilson.
I love Dennis. I still think about him. Makes me smile when I think about him. He used to say, you go the high road, I go the low road. He was referring to someone, to maybe a nemesis. And
yeah.
What he meant is that, in the end, is your innocence, is your not innocent, it's your kindness of heart that matters. It doesn't matter whether you end up in the gutter or end up meditating some high place somewhere. Yeah. But it's that spirit. Yeah.
Ed Carter.
Oh, what a great guy. Joy. Oh, you said one word. Joy, laughter, friendship.
As they say, smiling Ed Carter. Music.
My life.
Success.
Relative.
And last but certainly never least in this cosmic universe of ours, Carli Munoz.
Trying.
Well, I have to agree with you on that. We're all trying this crazy world, especially now during these times. But Carli, good sir, my friend, I as I said before, and I'll say again, this has been fun, and I appreciate you taking the time to let me pick inside your mind and ask you questions about your experiences through life. Because it's certainly been one heck of a experience for me. So thanks again.
Thank you, Nolan. It's been a pleasure for me.
Well, for all those out there who enjoy this, because who the heck wouldn't? And down the road, when Carli wins a Grammy for his next work that he's working on, or a Peabody Award for his, I'm sure, amazing autobiography that'll be coming out next fall in 2023, you'll want to say, I should have subscribed at the time. Like, comment, share all that fun jazz that we do. Carli, I know we mentioned it briefly, and you told to me before we agreed to this interview, you have your book coming up, but is there anything else besides that coming out next year that you'd like to share with the world, or say, be on the lookout for?
Well, I would love to take that moment, but my daughter is just got out of her ballet class, and I'm supposed to pick her up, so I better get going. But love you all. Thank you. Thank you for this great opportunity, and we'll catch up.
Yes.
Hold that question.
Yes. When the book comes out, we'll do this again.
It's my promise.
No problem. Take care, Carli, and again, thanks for everything.
Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.